Yeah, I know. It's been a while since I did a video. It's probably been about 2 weeks. I just got wrapped up with a lot of other stuff, and I just honestly forgot. So I got in here, and when I get in here, what is I'm working on a commission, and I'm really into making progress on it. So I just start working on that instead of taking time to work on this and do a video. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. So, but we're here at week 43, and we are talking about days 291 through 297. So, um, we're starting this off with Thor number 212. I'm sorry, 412, signed by Ron Frenz and Tom DeFalco. And this was the introduction of the New Warriors. And I like how they introduced the New Warriors because right off the bat, they're being introduced. They're assisting Thor, and they're fighting against the Juggernaut. And then when they then went into their own series, the very first threat that they have to handle is a Herald of Galactus, Terex. So they established right off the bat that this is a team of heavy hitters, and they're taking on heavy duty threats, which I did like. I like the fact how it's not like they slowly grow to being a team that can handle big threats. No, right off the bat, they're handling the big threats right off the bat, and I did like that, which made sense because when you look at the team lineup, all the team members, uh, three of the team members, oh no, four. I mean, you had Nova, you had Namorita. Yes, I know I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly. Firestar and Marvel Boy. I mean, all of those are like very powerful characters. So you gotta have a major threat for them to handle. And then, of course, you had a Speedball who, let's be honest, Speedball was comic relief. He didn't. It wasn't. He really didn't uh, take himself seriously or really get to that point of really really focusing on his powers to their fullest extent at this point. And then of course you had Night Thrasher, who was your Batman type character. And but this introduction of the team in Thor brings up an interesting point. Okay, the point being is, do Ron Frenz and Tom DeFalco, are they giving credit for creating these characters, or like Night Thrasher, or and this team, or was it the team from the actual first issue? And this was they used this issue of Thor to introduce and launch the title. So that I don't know. So Marcus, get on it, boy. Thank you, Marcus. Let me know in the comments what was the actual origin for this team. So, and this is Bose from the story that I'm working on for John's Longbox. So, but I'm sorry I haven't been posting in a while. So you're getting a overdue update on how things are going here with this. So, um, yeah, if we go from that issue, uh, day 291 to 292 with the Thunderbolts, issue number one. And of course, this title started off where like, oh wow, and remember the Tales of the Marvel Universe, they were actually debuted and introduced, and then you get to this issue, and at the very end of the issue, you discover them like they're like, we're the new team, the Avengers aren't here anymore, but we will be here to protect you, and the media's all happy and excited, and the public's all excited, and then at the very end of the issue, we discover that it's actually the Masters of Evil in disguise, which it made a lot of sense that like, hey, let's capitalize on this. So and it did a great job. I mean, the series itself went for like 78, 79 issues. So it was one of those books that where it had legs to go. And Mark, and of course, it didn't it helped that Mark Bagley was doing the pencils, and he's very, very fast penciler. And so that's the reason why I had him sign this book. And I had this one signed long time ago. Long time ago. This wasn't one of the books I had him sign this last year when I saw him at Garden State. And then from there we go to day 293, Tarzan versus Punisher, signed by Walt Simonson and Lee Weeks. This is again one of those. Lee Weeks is. I remember meeting him when when I was at the Kubert School, and he came in to as a guest to Alex Stevens uh, to uh, to just give us a nice lecture. And with Alex Stevens, his big thing for the class that he taught was layouts, and how you got to you put a lot of work in your layouts, and that takes care of a lot of your problems when you go to do the drawing. And Alex Stevens, a lot of times, he never really wanted finished drawings. He wanted to see like 8, 10 different layouts, and then from the layouts, he'd want a rough drawing of what it would be then afterwards, after when you did it. So give you an idea of what it would be, not a full finished penciled piece lots of times. And he brought Lee Weeks in specifically to teach us about how, like Lee Weeks said, he goes, how he puts a lot of work into his layouts. And he also said that's how he has a great deal of respect for those artists that are able to do a monthly book, and how it, he actually preferred doing the miniseries or doing fill-ins because he could put more work into it. And you can see this is one of those examples. Because remember, he also did a Magnus Robot Fighter versus Predator, and then he did this one, which is Tarzan versus Predator. And of course, Walt. This was a treat for Walt because uh, everybody knows Walt from the doing Thor, and Walt became very astute with Thor with Norse mythology. But one of Walt's loves is he loves dinosaurs. So Walt was able to incorporate this story with his love of dinosaurs to do this story. So he did the story, and then Lee Weeks came in and did the pencils. So, but, and then of course we go to day 294, top 10. Top 10. It's exactly what it really nails down what the Justice League and what the Avengers are. The Avengers are the Avengers, the Justice League of America. They're super cops. They they punch in, they do their shift, they fight evil, and then they punch out and they go home. And this really nailed it down. Like that's exactly what Top 10 is. It's super cops in a city full of people and robots, and all the freaks of the world are there. And if you know them, I'm not going to go into the mythology and the lore of Top 10. You can read Top 10 for yourself. But what I really loved about Top 10 was how this was my introduction to Gene Ha. And Gene Ha had to do George Perez level layouts and drawings with like including a ton of characters on each page. I mean, it went as far, and this is one of those books where I could go back once a year, go back and just not even read the story, but flip through the pages. And each time I go through and I look at each page, I know I'm missing something, or I feel like I'm discovering something for the very first time. Just with in the backgrounds, I remember like the one panel. I think the characters, the cops, were at the top of a building with all these flying cars passing by them. And in one of the cars, it had all the Elastic characters from Marvel and DC. So it had like Mr. Fantastic, Elastalad, Jimmy Olsen with his elastic powers. I think it was called Elastic Lad. Uh, Elongated Man, Plastic Man. They were all in this flying car with all their necks all like craning out the window to see what was going on. And then, of course, on another page, it had like all of it was top of a building, and they're like directing traffic, and it shows like all of the every single winged character ever. And keep in mind, he didn't have the rights to do all the Marvel and DC characters, so he had to draw like you could tell it's like it's it's Dawnstar from the Legion of Superheroes, but he can't draw it like Dawnstar, but he can do it like so it's like similar to it. So they were able to get past the licensing rights, and but you like have like 10 different winged characters flying by, and it really this top 10 was the book that really made me take notice to Gene Ha, and this is where it's like Gene Ha's never had to do something like this since then, but it really shows how when you're given a project, give it your all. Because it was because of this series, Gene Ha fell on my radar, and I really started paying attention to Gene and all of his work. And I got a lot, and I started buying a lot of the books that he did, even like when he would do a fill-in issue for Starman. I would get it when he did Fables. I would pick it up. A lot of times I started seeking him out whenever I saw there was a book with Gene Ha in it. I would get it. Perfect example is Shade. When they did that mini series, Shade, he did the very first issue, and I didn't get all those issues. But the reason why I got that first issue was because of Gene Ha, not because of Robinson, but because of Gene Ha. And found out when I had him sign it that here he just did after he did the pencils and the inks, he did like a light color comp to give them the colorist an idea of how he wanted to do it. Well, apparently he did such a good job that they shot straight from his page from his color comps. So, and that just shows how he puts so much work into what he does. So, and then of course we go from there. That was day 294. We go to 295. 295 is Total Eclipse #2, signed by Steve Olaf. Total Eclipse, they caught on quickly, or not quickly, but they saw the success of Secret Wars, and they saw the success of Crisis of Infinite Earths. Okay, we all know the story. The reason why they did Secret Wars was to sell toys. But I'll tell you something. I really wasn't buying superhero books, and what I was buying was DC stuff. And after I bought the Secret Wars, I'm like, oh, who are all these different characters? I know, like, yeah, Spider-Man, Captain America. I know these characters, but who are all these other characters? And it was from Secret Wars that I started buying a lot more Marvel. And then once I it was so Marvel obviously saw the boost, and you know how it is. If Marvel sees a boost in the sales, all the other companies are going to see the boost, and they're going to do something similar. Just as when George Perez and Marv Wolfman did Crisis on Infinite Earths. Remember, the reason why it became what it was is because George put in so many different characters, because he was like, he didn't know if he was ever going to have the opportunity to draw these characters again. So he was taking the opportunity to put in more characters than what Marv was doing on the script. And that's why Legion of Superheroes, the Crisis on Infinite Earths, became so big. It was supposed to be a short, simple story and became so much more complex because of what George was doing. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be. I mean, he'd be like, well, I just need we're going to have like 3 or 4 different extras in this issue with the main character that we established in issue 1. George's like, nope, I'm putting in 25. Okay. So it's one of those where it's like, instead of having like one issue, like instead of having one member of the Legion of Superheroes and one member of Justice League, he'd have like 8 and 9. So it's like really, he'd have like the whole team there showing how it's like, yeah, the whole, it's not just these 2, 3 characters that know what's going on. The entire DC universe understands that there's a threat that'll wipe them out. Which, I mean, that was, and so Total Eclipse, they caught on and they did their Crisis on Infinite Earths, their secret version of Secret Wars, to introduce everybody to their catalog of characters. That's the reason, like, when you get into the whole, I know, like, I think it's Snuggie and Aldous, they do the whole that faux fight over this Man Thing versus Swamp Thing. And whenever they get into that pissing contest online, I always throw up an image of the Heap and how like the Heap is the OG because the Heap came out and was introduced long before either Man Thing or Swamp Thing, even though those two characters came out relatively the same time. The Heap is the OG. And again, it did what it was supposed to do. It introduced me to all the different characters in the Eclipse line. And I ended up then buying, I didn't buy a whole lot of Eclipse, but I bought some. Like the main thing was like, I know I shared it with you, Skywolf. Skywolf was one of those books that I was like, hey, this is a cool, it's a cool name, B, it's a cool character, and I thought it'd be a lot cooler than Airboy. So that's the reason why I bought that miniseries by Chuck Dixon and Tom Lyle. And I know like Chuck Dixon doesn't do cons anymore. If I were to ever have the opportunity to get Chuck Dixon to sign just like about 4 books, okay, 3 of them would be the Airwolf miniseries because I liked it so much. So, but yeah, I liked how they did how like Total Eclipse Comics did their event, their Secret Wars book called Total Eclipse with Bill Sienkiewicz doing the covers, and then of course having the main story. And each story also after like the first issue, they would have like slight backup stories, slightly in conjunction to the main book storyline, but mainly it was introducing you to other characters that they couldn't really all that like spotlight on, but was part of their catalog of characters. I think of that Bean character. I think that was issue 3 or 4 that they had a backup story with him in. So, like I said, it did its job. It did what it's supposed to do. And then from there we go to day 296, Turok number 0. Again, Turok number 0, signed by Tim Truman and Rags Morales. Uh, and it was Tim had gave you the full story of Turok, his origin, and then going to where he got trapped in the Lost Land, and then coming back to uh, the Unity during the Unity event on Valiant, bringing them back to the Valiant universe. And like I said, I just liked how they incorporated. Rags is on his game was really on fire. When Rags first started, he was the follow-up artist to Bart Sears, and a lot of people were writing into Valiant, not liking it, and Valiant stood up and was like, "Hey, this guy, this Rags guy is really good. We really believe in him," and it paid off them sticking with Rags because he had a very successful run on Turok, and this issue is a prime example of it. So, and then from there we have, I mean, just everything. I think about how like the way they did the story was, they started off with Tor as basically a young man, and he goes out into the wilderness with his mentor. And I'm cleaning my nib with my nail. It's one thing when you start it, when you buy a brand new a brand new inkwell, especially the brand I buy, a lot of times the ink will build up inside the reservoir and it'll actually clog the nib. So I need to go in. I usually use my nail. That's the reason why I keep this nail long. In fact, I got to trim all my nails. But this nail, I a lot of times don't trim it because I need it to clean the nib. So, okay. Nib is clean. Let's get back to work here. No, but anyway, the whole story was uh, it starts with Torok as a child, as a young man, with his mentor. Ah, shit. This nib's busted. I broke it. Oh well. It happens. It happens. But it was also one of those nibs. It was I knew it was on its last legs. That's why I was using it in that area because it was just blacks, and I knew it was going to die soon. So we'll shove that over there, and we're doing a black area, so we'll grab my black nib. So okay, back to Torok number 0. It starts off with Torok as a young boy with his mentor going out into the wilderness and getting sucked into the lost land. And then, of course, his mentor gets back to the Lost Land, but Torok's lost. He's lost in the Lost Land, and he grows up there. And then when he returns, he discovers that his mentor is an old man who is on his deathbed, and he implores Torok to take his grandson under his wing. And his grandson's like he's a he's a punk kid. Let's just put it that he's a punk kid, and so Torok now needs to mentor him. Which anything is like that's a great analogy for us as adults. If we have kids, our job is to raise our children, and when we get and if we know we did a good job, is when we see them become children, and we see them teaching their children as we taught them. And that's kind of what we see with Torok, where where he was the child needed to be mentored. Now he's the mentor. Andy, I think his kid's name was Andy. So, but no, in this issue, Rags was firing all cylinders. His storytelling's great. He's doing like there's a couple pages or a couple panels where he could have he used just a small space to draw a panel that if you blew it up, it was impactful as a full page spread or a large like you do 3-tier panels and they're each page long. He would take that if you blew it up, it would be as impactful as that. So he really was, in my opinion, really on top of his game when he did Torok number 0. And then, of course, we go from there to the last day of this week being 297, the Untold Legend of the Batman. All the covers were done by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. These issues are smaller than a regular comic book because they were actually inserts in a cereal. You would buy the cereal, you'd eat the cereal, and then at the end you'd have, right there inside the cereal, along the side was a comic book in a cellophane bag. You rip the bag open, and then you had a comic book, and the comic book was just reprints of old Batman stories, but you had brand new covers or brand new cover images by Jose. And I remember discovering these, and finding them in the back issue bin. And then so as soon as I found them, I was like, "Oh, this is really cool. This is different." That following year, I had Jose uh, sign them for me. So I've got all three. And instead of showing you all three, I showed you the one that I like the most. So just shared that one too. Why? Because starting with the next video, which will be week 44, we go to 2 full weeks of the Uncanny X-Men. Now, I've had a lot of fun posting these images, and this week, I mean, this last 2 weeks, and it's funny how like you see a lot of people that they'll be a fan of a certain era or a fan of a certain artist, and how normally they're not liking it, they're liking it. So, but that'll be on the next video. So hopefully I'll do a video tomorrow. If I don't do a video tomorrow, then it'll be the following week or whatnot. So I know I've fallen off the horse with doing these videos, but like I said, I'm really into the commission I'm doing right now, and so I really putting everything into that. And so in fact, what I'm gonna do is, yeah, I'm gonna finish that up, finish this up when the video is over. But I want to show you this. So let's clean this first. There we go. Get the nib is clean. So this is the piece that I'm working on. This is a commission. Let's see. Let's pull the camera back. This is, you can see it's a mom with her baby, and you can see I'm putting all the folds in. I put a lot of work into this. You know what? You can see how much work I'm putting into this. And like doing the hair up here was very labor intensive, but you can see how I did it in such a way so that when you look at it, you have the feel of the individual strands going down, making up this black. And then same thing here. And then of course, I'm at the point now with this one, like I very quickly, this wasn't too hard to put this, which was like the back of the bed or the pillow, put those folds in. All I gotta do is up here, I gotta do this, and then starting today, the baby and the mom, I'm gonna start working on them. So I'm really excited. So that's why it's the reason why I was negligent in doing doing this for John. But I'll be back doing this on a regular basis. And remember, Heroic Tales #2, he has gotten the issues in, so he's starting fulfillment. So if you backed his campaign, you'll be getting your book soon. If you haven't, you still have the opportunity to go on to Fund My Comic, and he'll have it available for you to get, and he'll send it right out to you. So you guys have a great day. You know I'm having a great day, and remember, life is stressful. Just take it all one dot at a time.